Happy Monday. Welcome into Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast presented by BetMGM. I'm your host today, Brendan Glasheen, joined by the OG crew. We got Sean Zerillo, who pens opening pitch. It's up at Action Network right now. He's on the opening pitch write-ups Monday through Thursday. And we have Collin Whitchurch, Action Network senior editor. He's our baseball guy. He's here joining us as well for Monday Best Bets. You can hear Best Bets every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday morning during the baseball season. So subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also find our programming on the Action Network YouTube page. They do a nice job of putting out a video version. They cut it up, put some graphics on there. It looks all beautiful. You can see the picks and all that good stuff. 5-star ratings and reviews on the audio side, subscriptions on the YouTube side. We appreciate it. Thanks for being with us. If you're just hopping in, because we get it, baseball's in the crossover, in the thick of the crossover season. So some of you might be joining in on the baseball later than you would be. I think a nice contingent of fans file in after Memorial Day. But if you've been here from the beginning, we love it. 13 games on this Monday. We got to get into the eclipse and how it's going to impact a couple of these games. Arlington and Cleveland are going to have the luxury of having a look at the eclipse that's coming later today. Cleveland's got the first game. They moved their game actually because of it. 5:10 first pitch between the White Sox and the Cleveland Guardians. So we'll work that in there if these guys have a thought on that and how it impacts their handicapping. But as we normally do, we'll start with a best bet for this Monday. Sean Zerillo, what do you have in mind for today?
Cheating a little bit here because the line has moved, but the Phillies in the first 5 innings up to about -110. I projected this closer to -116, but I think there is a wider range of outcomes that I could have this line depending on how aggressive of a projection I use for Spencer Turnbull, because he was very impressive in his first start back this season. Popped a 112 stuff plus. He was at 104 prior to Tommy John surgery, 98 after coming back from Tommy John surgery last season. And you look at the fastball velocity, and it's a bit surprising because it's down relative to last year, relative to his career average. But his secondary stuff is, just popping off the page. 144 stuff plus on his changeup, 126 on the curve, 118 on the slider. And it's also clearly a change in philosophy relative to how he's pitched previously. You look at his fastball rates throughout his career, closer to 60%, under 50% in that first start, and then using that secondary stuff combined more than 50% of the time. So going to use his fastball to get strikes, going to avoid going to it too frequently to limit the damage, and probably going to hone in on that secondary stuff more aggressively. The projected FIP range for Turnbull this year between 4.4 and 4.9. I think he beats even the more optimistic end of those projections. If he maintains these pitch modeling metrics, I think Turnbull can be a sub-4 pitcher. So pretty high on Spencer Turnbull right now. We'll see how he looks in the second start, but I paid up for him in a league, in an NFC league last night, where I need to start pitching. Everybody needs starting pitching because all these pitchers are getting hurt. I bid 35 on Turnbull. Next closest bid was 25. There were some pretty aggressive bids out there for guys like Jordan Wicks and Turnbull, guys who are, sort of on the scrap heap or on the fringes of being in 12-team leagues. So other people see it. The model, their pitch modeling metrics are very clear. This is a guy who, coming off of Tommy John surgery, needed to recover, seemingly has recovered, and maybe the Phillies have unlocked something in terms of giving him a complete arsenal. I don't really like Miles Mikolas. We kind of know what he is as well. He is a bad stuff, good command guy. And his projections for this year are very similar to Turnbull. 4.5 to 4.7 is the FIP range. But he was a 5.44 expected ERA last year, a high 5 expected FIP. I think he fits very well within his projected range of outcomes. I think Spencer Turnbull far exceeds his likely expected range of outcomes based on what we've seen thus far. So the Phillies have a better lineup, the better defense as well for me. I projected them, as I said, closer to -116 is the official number I'm using for the first 5. I probably could have gotten this closer to -125 or -130, though, if I was just isolating Turnbull based off of what I saw in that first start. So up to -110 is my cutoff price. Phillies, and if you get plus money, -101, even -105 for the full game, I'm fine with that too.
Bad stuff, good command. It's funny. We do this podcast on Fridays too, and DeBundo said just the opposite of Yusei Kikuchi. Great stuff, bad command. But he had a better line for it, and it was funny, and I thought it was good. But it was more of like Kikuchi bias. I'm glad you brought up the pitcher injury thing. It seems, I feel like when Collin Whitchurch comes on, and this is going to lean into his White Sox too. But I'm not doing this to start there's a point to this. The pitching injuries. Another baseball announcer gets clicks over the weekend. Wayne Randazzo rips into Major League Baseball over the weekend on the Angels broadcast. And I haven't talked to Collin yet because he likes his new play-by-play guy in Chicago, Jordan Schifrin. It's John Schifrin, right? Is it John? John. Yeah, John does a good job. Anyway, anything, you got a thought on that, Collin? Did you hear Wayne Randazzo rip into baseball over the weekend?
Yeah, I don't know if there's much to that necessarily. I don't
disagree.
What's that?
I don't disagree. I was curious what your take on it might be.
Yeah, I mean, anytime a couple of big name pitchers go down at the same time, there's always this conversation. I just don't think it's necessarily a conversation worth having because it starts basically at the high school level at this point, maybe even younger than that. This is just the way pitchers are treated, And yeah. I'm not necessarily saying that's right. I'm just saying there's nothing we can do about it. It's, Strider going down, Shane Bieber going down. We've seen so many big pitcher injuries this year, and it's unfortunate. But people are going to come in and take their place, and we're gonna move on. And sometimes those pitchers come back and don't miss a beat. I was just looking up Darvish's stat line in preparation for a pick I'm giving later on this show, and I was reminded that he missed the entire 2015 season with an arm injury, and when they catch these things at a certain point in their careers, people can come back and you forget that they were injured a couple of years later. That was the case kind of with me with Darvish, and sometimes they're never the same, and that's unfortunate, and you hope that's not the case. I think that bettors, I think that fantasy players obviously make a big deal of this, as they should. Spencer Strider, more than anything, is such a huge loss for the Braves if he is indeed lost for the season. But that's just, it's baseball, it's sports. You see it in NFL when a big ugly injury happens and someone like Nick Chubb goes down, and I don't know what you can do about it. I don't know if anyone's to blame for it necessarily. It's just the nature of the sport.
Right. You want to add anything, Zerillo? I should have gone to you on this too, because you mentioned the pitching injuries, and well,
I think MLB now saying that they want to protect pitchers after getting rid of sticky stuff, after changing the baseballs every fucking season, after introducing a pitch clock and saying, well, we have one season of minor league data suggesting that nothing happens. Well, you don't know the cumulative effects of the pitch clock over time.
Right.
You don't know the cumulative effects of all of those rules, and I would imagine it is the confluence of factors like anything else. You were also referencing Wayne Randazzo with the Nolan Schanuel's on base streak.
Yes.
I don't think we need to give two shits about a guy having a whatever on base streak when he's hitting under 200 with a 540 OPS. He's also not going to be in the big leagues particularly long, in my opinion. I don't really see the skills as a major league first baseman. Really surprised he was picked in the first round last year. He has great plate discipline, but seemingly cannot do anything else. I think the biggest video, or the bigger video, to come out of LA this week was Carlos Estevez signing jerseys from last season. I don't know if you guys saw that clip.
No.
Oh man, that is just a red flag for fanatics and all of Major League Baseball, grabbing the jersey from last year, holding it up and going, oh my God, this is so much better. If you've watched any games on TV thus far, if you've gone to a game in person, you could see through the player's pants from the third deck. Like, what are we doing here? This sport looks like an utter joke. I will not buy any jerseys this season. The Mets are finally coming out with their City Connect jersey. I'm not going to buy that shit. Like, why would I pay money for these low quality ass pieces of jerseys? It's terrible, man. The jersey thing is such an unbelievable embarrassment to this sport right now. They look like they're wearing Little League uniforms. Like, what are we doing with these professional athletes?
Wow. I wish you knew you had thought on that. I would have made sure we worked it in, but you got there. So anyway,
to see an actual major league player like signing a jersey for a fan and go, this is so much better. Like, can we pull these out of the closet? Not only that too, but the Brewers, I believe, were supposed to play in their City Connects. There was another team supposed to play in their City Connects. They didn't even get the shipment in time over the weekend. So like, they can't even get the crappy jerseys to the teams on time. What are we doing? This is a
fans
joke.
Have better jerseys than the ones they're wearing right now. Oh, geez.
They're literally asking, the players are literally asking if they could pull the old jerseys out of the closet because they hate playing in these. This is like the Seinfeld episode where George made the Yankees players switch, from cotton to polyester or vice versa, and then it started raining and the jerseys all shrunk on them. Like, is something going to happen during the eclipse today? And like, the jerseys are going to change color? I don't know. I don't really trust the quality of the Fanatics products at this point. Like maybe all the uniforms change dye and moonlight during the day.
they're gonna have a tie-dye day in Arlington and in Cleveland today. Wow. All right. I should have led with that before best bet. Sorry. But anyway, Collin Whitchurch. And it's just because Zerillo brought up the pitcher injuries, and that is a theme here in the first couple weeks. But it's such a good point. The clock going from 20 to 18 seconds with runners on base. We haven't bridged a gap from one year to the next. And if anything, right, year 2 is going to be, which is now, year 2 is going to have more indicators of what the risks could be. And we probably still need a little more data, as Collin referenced. There's a couple of high end arms that are banged up right now, but we're still in April, so we'll see what it looks like maybe by Memorial Day.
It's been a
Collin
so far.
Yeah, Collin, let's go to you for a best bet. What do you have for us on this Monday?
My best bet today is going to be on the Rays and continuing to buy Zach Eflin. I thought he'd get more respect here in the betting market. I was really surprised to see this line. Its Rays full game money line is minus 145 at BetMGM right now. I'm still really high on Eflin this season. You look at his full season numbers through 2 starts right now, and they're not great. But it's really just one big inning that did him in this season. His first start against Toronto, he absolutely cruised through 5 innings, got into a little bit of trouble in the 6th inning, and Kevin Cash surprisingly let him try to pitch through it. Very un-Rays-like, especially early in the season when managers are treating their star pitchers with a little bit more of kid gloves, and especially an organization like Tampa. I thought they'd hook him once he allowed a couple of base runners, but they let him try to pitch through it. It kind of unraveled, allowed a bunch of runs. But through 5 innings of that start, he was electric. And through 6 1/3 innings last time out against Texas, he looked just like he did last year. So I'm really high on Eflin. I still remain high on Eflin. I think he has a great start today against an Angels offense that is very not good. They're below average overall. They strike out at a top 10 rate. I'm not worried about Eflin's K rate through 2 starts. Again, I think that's just kind of small sample size noise. So I really think that we're going to see vintage Eflin. We're going to see the Eflin we saw last year tonight in Los Angeles. The Rays didn't even have to travel far for this. Sometimes when you see lines like this going from one day to the next on travel days, you think maybe that has something to do with that, but they're coming from Denver. Not a far trip to Los Angeles. Eflin's going up against Tyler Anderson here, who maybe the books are overvaluing after a really good debut start to the season against the Marlins. He went 7 shutout innings. Again, it was against the Marlins. I still think Tyler Anderson is overall a below-average starting pitcher. He doesn't miss enough bats, has trouble with walks, and the Rays crushed lefties last year. I expect that to continue this year. Their lineup didn't have much turnover. They were 120 WRC plus against lefties last year. So I really like the Rays in this spot. Minus 145. I would probably take them down to, the minus 160, minus 170 range there on the money line.
And Zerillo, you want to chime in because I know you're going to hit the Rays later, but we can just do that now. You have them in your write-up that you would play them in the first 5.
Yeah, I do like them in the first 5 only just because I think the Angels bullpen is better than people realize, number 1. Number 2, the Rays actually have the highest bullpen ERA in all of baseball at the moment, and there could be a little bit of a hangover coming out of Coors Field. They use their bullpen a lot in recent days. The difference between Eflin and Anderson is so much wider than the difference between these bullpens. About a run and a half in terms of like an expected FIP range. Eflin is more on the Mikolas side of like not the best stuff, but phenomenal command. But he's closer to like league average and stuff, and has even better command than Mikolas does. But yeah, his projections for 2024, 3.4 to 3.6 on a FIP. Anderson is anywhere between 4.5 and 5.07. So I set like a run to a run and a half. Anderson, is also in a tough matchup here because Collin mentioned the Rays were really good against lefties this last season. And when you dig into the splits for their hitters, Yandy Diaz, 158 WRC plus against lefties over the last 2 seasons. Harold Ramirez, 148, Rosarena, 150, Isaac Paredes, 128. Like this lineup up and down hits left-handed pitching. Ahmed Rosario, who they brought in, 126. So I like this lineup a lot against left-handed pitching. They project significantly better against lefties than righties. And aside from Randy, they don't really have the name value, but this is a very potent offense against left-handed pitching. Anderson also faced, basically the same group of hitters. I think 6 or 7 of the hitters he's going to face today, he faced in a start against the Rays late last year. He was fine the first time through the lineup. They hit him the second time through. This Angels lineup, obviously with Mike Trout, a little bit of a lift compared to last season, but it's still Like once you get through the middle of the lineup, the back end of the lineup is such a hole. So I don't love betting these Angels overs yet, even though they're cashing. I don't love betting on the Angels in general. I bet on them the other day, but that was after the Trevor Story injury and just getting ahead of live movement there. So yeah, it's I don't really bucket the Angels as bad as the other teams like the Rockies or the Nationals. I think they're a tier above those teams. But at the same time, when it comes to like actually putting money on them, I feel like I have the same like visceral reaction and I don't want to do it. So Rays first 5 for me. The bullpens I actually think are a lot closer than people realize. But yeah, I think the gap between Eflin and Anderson is pretty substantial, and the Rays left-handed splits are really nice.
Okay, very good. So there's your handicap for Rays, Angels, and the public likes the Rays. 90% of the bets, 99% of the cash, according to the Action app on Tampa. Let's move on to our Fade the Public segment. And speaking of pitchers that we were kind of looking at the end of last year in the second half into the postseason, sort of suspect, not really sure what the mindset is with how they're going to extend. Zach Gallen, for instance, who's looked good, has walked 5 guys in 2 starts. He did face the Rockies on opening his first start, and he went through 5 innings, allowed just 1 run. That was a 16-1 final. Arizona over Colorado. Those 2 teams meet again. And the Action app has the numbers here, 94% of the bets, 85, now up to 88% of the cash on the D-backs over the Rockies. Total in that game is sitting around 10.5, 11. What's the mindset here, Zerillo? The Zach Gallen handicap with 2 wins in his first 2 starts. Suspect at all with Gallen through 2 starts? Your thoughts on him and if the public's onto it, or do you want to go to the other side with the Rockies?
Yeah, there's some major red flags in the profile. I mean, we talked about it last week, but the velocity is down, and now he's had 2 starts where his velocity average was lower than his lowest start last season. So that's a red flag. The stuff plus is down from 106 to 87, huge decrease. The command is down, and it's not just like the command on paper is down. He's throwing strikes at 40%, 38%. Last year it was closer to 60%. He's also getting he's benefited from calls. I mean, watching these 2 starts, he's getting calls on pitches outside the strike zone. Now that is a reputational thing too, because he's known for good command. He's going to get those veteran calls. So like I could complain about it all I want. He'll probably continue to get some of those calls, but at some point he's going to run into a hitter's umpire and he's not going to get those calls. And I think he's going to fall apart. And I'm interested in continuing maybe, I don't know against the Rockies particularly, but continuing to bang his walk prop overs because he's just not finding the zone as consistently as he used to. He's not generating whiffs. He's not generating chases as much as he has in recent seasons. Granted, it's a 2-start sample, but just watching the start against the Yankees, he was generating a lot of weak contact, but they weren't chasing anything outside of the zone. They were really laying off of his pitches. So yes, I'm concerned about Gallen. I think he can continue to be an effective pitcher because he's smart and he knows how to pitch. He's not a thrower. He's not a guy who is relying on supreme velocity to get by. But every time you lose a tick of velocity, it costs you about a quarter to a half run on an ERA projection. So down a tick and a half, you can expect that ERA to inflate at some point. But Shane Bieber was a guy who this is reminding me of because Bieber won his Cy Young. His velocity dipped. And for 2 years on this podcast, we were waiting for the Shane Bieber implosion, and it never really came because he's really smart and really good at pitching like Zach Gallen. So you can have this decline in stuff. You can have this decline in velocity and still be an effective guy. But I just don't think he's going to be as effective as his projections might indicate. So I'm lower on Gallen relative to the market just based off the decline in numbers. But Kyle Freeland is just still an abomination. And he was lit up for those 16 runs by the Diamondbacks in that first start. Got lit up again at his second start. His velocity is up this season, but his stuff plus has essentially remained the same, 74 to 83. But it's really still like a completely below average profile, and Profiles is one of the worst pitchers in the major leagues. The FIP projections are in the low to mid 5s, 5.1 to 5.5. His expected metrics from last season: 5.7 expected ERA, 5.2 expected FIP. So I see runs in Colorado tonight. It's not the best conditions necessarily. I think temperatures are in the 50s. The wind is neutral or blowing in, but still projected this total closer to 11.6. So over 11 up to minus 112. I like getting those over 10.5s where possible, but I believe that did move since last night. So over 11, 11 being a key number at Coors, where it is not at other parks, just because you get those 7 and 9s at other parks, only 11 really popping up at Coors Field consistently. But yeah, the over in Colorado tonight. And even if Gallen doesn't, blow up tonight, I still expect it's coming at some point, and we will find value betting against them. There's probably value betting on the Rockies. I don't want to back Freeland.
Yeah, I hear you on that. How about you, Collin Whitchurch? Are you concerned about Zach Gallen? Let me see here. BetMGM has a total at 10.5 with juice to the over, -120.
Yeah, I'll be quick here. I basically echo everything Sean said regarding Zach Gallen. I will say that I generally try to bet Coors Unders. Coors Unders are generally more profitable. Books usually overvalue it, but I do lean toward the over today. That one of those weekend games against Tampa, total was 12.5. I blindly bet the under. I was just like 12.5. That's absurd. Coors Unders are profitable. I think it was 6-3 in the ninth inning. Ended up being 10-7 or something like that. One of the worst early season bets I've had this season for sure. But yeah, I'll be looking toward the over, especially if 10.5's out there. I'll probably sprinkle a little bit on the over there, given the concerns with Gallen. And like Sean said, I think if I were to bet a side on this, it would be Colorado just because of those Gallen concerns. But as far as picking a side on this one, I'm staying away.
Yeah, that game was 4-2 through 6 and 6-2 in the top of the ninth. The Rays scored 5. The Rockies scored 4, including the walk-off grand slam to end the game. So that is, to this point, the worst loss of the season, I think. Rockies and Rays under 12.5 on Friday. Diamondbacks on Saturday gave it a little bit of a run for its money, but I think 9 runs in the ninth inning kind of takes the cake thus far.
Hey, I know it's a long season and it's April, but like with the Rays win total, I mean, they're 5-5. They're fine. They're at 500, but I better not have to look back at that freaking Rocky series and go, I mean, come on, guys.
This just takes me back. This almost, the fact that we're talking about this game takes me back to 2 or 3 years ago when it was like September during that 100-loss Diamondbacks season, and I feel like every single day Sean and I were giving out Diamondbacks money lines, and they were losing like 105 games, but they were plus 200 every single day, and it was just Diamondbacks, and just that team murdered me. And then murdered us in the postseason last year. So I think we should just abstain from betting Diamondbacks games from this point forward.
This is the spot, though, where the Rays need to rack up those wins, Brendan. They have 7 with the Angels, I believe, in the next couple weeks. So that's their, this is their time to pad their schedule. They may even have the White Sox this month as well. I believe when I looked at the Rays' April schedule, there was a rough start, but then after that, it got really soft. So they need to start padding some wins here at the end of the month.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad you said it because, I trust your opinion more than mine. Let's go to underdogs if there are any today. It's a big slate, and by the way, the price there on the money line right now, the Diamondbacks are -180, Rockies +150, the 2-8 Rockies. Any underdog that you find attractive today, Sean Zerillo?
I want to, but no, unfortunately not. The market, has just been significantly tighter this year. I'm not forcing anything, wasn't forcing anything in years past, and I didn't necessarily change the inputs, for my model or change the data sources. I just feel like the betting market has been significantly tighter than it has been in recent seasons. My volume has been reduced. My volume on underdogs has been reduced. But thus far, favorites have actually been the, more profitable side to bet blindly. 84-59, -0.8% ROI betting all favorites. If you bet all underdogs, you'd be at -6.5% on the return. April of last year, if everybody remembers, underdogs got absolutely destroyed. -14% ROI in April last season, but then plus 8.8% in May. This stuff always evens out. Overs were flying earlier in the season. The betting market moved the totals up, and now unders have been hitting, closer to 55% over the past 4 or 5 days since we last talked about it. So everything evens out in the end. I do think the betting market has been very sharp, though, thus far earlier in the season, and I haven't found really many big underdogs to fire on. I fired on the Diamondbacks on Saturday. That looked like a good bet early, considering how Max Fried was in that start. And the Braves have some significant concerns about their pitching, by the way, beyond just Spencer Strider getting hurt. But I think the market's been very tight. The only underdog in range for me today is the Rockies. I projected it at +145. It's at +160, so technically +155 or better, +160. I probably like it, but I might wait till Freeland exits the game. If it's tied and Freeland's coming out maybe in the 5th inning, 4th inning, I'll consider taking a shot on Colorado at that point if the price is in the same range, because the bullpen should be much closer than the two starting pitchers are. And I just don't want money on the Rockies so long as Freeland is in that matchup. But yeah, beyond Colorado, I'm struggling to find a dog today, unfortunately. Maybe there will be some on the board for tomorrow.
Collin, you found an underdog that you like.
Yeah, it's always a really terrible feeling to lock in a bunch of underdog bets and then realize that Sean, who is infinitely smarter than you, doesn't like any of the underdogs. I'm on several underdogs today. My favorite one on the board, though, is the Cubs on the money line against the Padres tonight. Javier Assad is underrated, someone I'm going to be buying a lot this year, especially when he's an underdog. He flies under the radar a lot because he doesn't miss a lot of bats, but he limits walks and he limits home runs. The latter is particularly key at Wrigley Field, which is not necessarily relevant today, but just overall his profile. I think we're going to see Assad kind of be that guy who beats his peripherals on a regular basis, just specifically because he's not a strikeout pitcher. He's got a really nice 5-pitch mix. He has a ground ball rate near 50% last year. He's just someone I'm really high on as kind of we see DeBundo come out with these pitchers to buy who necessarily are not necessarily rated properly by the market, and I think Assad is someone who would be on that list for me for sure. Given what we saw out of him last year, with the Justin Steele injury for the Cubs, they're going to need someone to step up in that rotation. I think Assad is more than capable. I like him today, and I really like what I've seen out of the Cubs offense so far this year. I think it's legit. I think we're going to see it be a top 10 offense in the majors this season over the long haul. We saw it over the weekend against the Dodgers. They absolutely blasted Bright Lights Bobby Miller on Friday. I think we're going to see Seiya Suzuki kind of make that jump into superstardom. He's got an all-star season in him. Christopher Morel is just an insane hitter. I don't know where he's going to play. I think that DH is probably his long-term home. The Cubs are trying to play him at third base. They're kind of bouncing him around, trying to get him more infield work, but the dude can just absolutely rake. Ian Happ, Cody Bellinger, Dansby Swanson. We saw it against the Dodgers for the most part. We saw it yesterday, obviously, against Gavin Stone. We saw it Friday against Bobby Miller. I'm very, very high on the Cubs offense this year. I think that we're going to see them kind of take that leap. And we don't want to try to overreact too much to early season results, but I think they really look like probably the cream of the crop in the NL Central so far in the early going. The Steele injury obviously hurts them a lot, but they've got a deep minor league core. We saw Ben Brown come up. We could see some more reinforcements out there. Hopefully they get Steele back before long. But as far as today goes, I'm betting them. I'm betting on that offense. I'm betting on Assad against the Padres and Yu Darvish. I do think rumors of Yu Darvish's demise have been greatly exaggerated. He's obviously not the ace that he once was. He's still a really strong, savvy veteran arm. I just don't trust him to survive against this offense. I just spent a couple minutes gushing about the Cubs offense. I think that they are a tough matchup for Darvish. They're going to work some deep counts. They're going to draw some walks. We might see San Diego's bullpen a little earlier than they would prefer. And San Diego's bullpen is obviously a weakness. I think they've been okay so far this year, but overall they project pretty weak. So I like the Cubs here, full game money line, about 115 there. I don't think I would probably bet it past that point, but I really like Chicago today. I like Assad. I like that offense against Darvish.
Just a quick comment on Petco Park. I feel like it's playing a little bit more offensively this year. The Padres changed the batter's eye after the players complaining about it last year. They had record-setting woes offensively with runners in scoring position last season. It seems like they're cashing in more frequently, but it also seems like runs in general are just coming more freely at that park. So they didn't change the dimensions this season, but they did change the batter's eye, and I think that could have an impact on the run-scoring environment and maybe lifting Petco Park to a little bit more closer to major league average this season. Typically, it plays about 10% below major league average, but even if it's a 2 or 3% increase, it's enough to move the average total from 7.5 to 8 or something like that. So just keep an eye on the scoring at Petco Park over the remainder of the season or going forward. I just think the hitters are having an easier time seeing the ball, and we're getting more run scoring as a result.
I think Collin has a couple more. Zerillo's final bet was the Rays first 5 play. Collin, want to give a thought here on, you like the fading the Braves today with Charlie Morton on the mound, and then also a K prop that you were looking at for today.
Yeah, this is more just kind of a numbers play than anything. I think that if we're going to look for spots to bet against the Braves this year, I'm going to do it on Charlie Morton starts. He obviously looked good his first time out. It was against the White Sox, so I'm not going to put a lot of stock into that. Over the age of 40, I'm just going to take a shot at a big number because I think that it's kind of overinflating him given how the market reacts to Atlanta in general. Julio Teheran is making his debut for the Mets today. He was obviously nothing special, but he was pretty solid last year. I like him as an early season buy until the league sees him a few more times. So just in that plus 185 range, it's one of those bets we talk about sometimes. You throw down a half a unit and expect it to lose, but you think the value's there with the number. Sean, obviously, the number isn't quite there for him, which is fine, but I'm willing to take a shot. I'm betting against the Braves mostly when Charlie Morton takes the mound. After that, Sean already talked about the Phillies. I did want to talk a little bit more about Spencer Turnbull. We talked about his pitch mix. I actually think some of the pitch tracking data is a little bit slow to react to Turnbull. He hasn't sweeper this year. I don't know if it's tracking as a sweeper right now. But you look at the kind of the vertical and horizontal movement on that pitch, it is starkly different than it was last year. The stuff plus on it is insane. I think that I'm very high on Turnbull, just like Sean is, with the vertical break on that sweeper. Maybe it'll be for the full season. Maybe the league will catch up to him after a couple starts. But at the very least, until the league does catch up to him, he's someone I'm going to bet on. Also, his fastball's tracking more like a cutter now. I saw comparisons to Justin Steele, who I just talked about there with the movement on his fastball. So very intriguing stuff out of Spencer Turnbull. I'm betting the Phillies both halves today, right there around that minus 110 range. And then my final bet is a prop. It's funny, we bury it all the way this deep in the show when a reigning Cy Young winner changes teams and makes his season debut. We have Blake Snell taking the mound for the first time for the Giants tonight. This is somewhat of a blind fade again. His K prop is sitting there at 6.5 right now. I think that with the late build-up to the season, I don't expect that we see Snell go more than probably 5 innings today, and 6.5 just seems too high of a number. So I'm willing to fade Snell in the strikeout department today, betting under 6.5 in his debut with San Francisco.
He didn't make a minor league start. Was he doing like extended spring training?
I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't have any ramp ups, so that's probably a really sharp look there, Collin. I can't imagine he goes more than 60 pitches, 70 pitches. So
I'd say 80 was probably my high-end guess on him.
And he can get the strikeouts in that time.
Absolutely, but
it's the low volume of pitches that you need him to get it in. Yeah, that's probably a good look there. I might join you on that. My only other bet on the board, Brandon, potentially is White Sox Guardians. We just don't have a starting pitcher for the White Sox yet. Colin and I were discussing it before we get on the pod, but I think either way, I'm probably going to have this total closer to 8.25. So over 7.5 minus 110. I just want confirmation on the starting pitcher. I think the White Sox are not the most confident in the intelligence of their players, or maybe the umpires, as well. With the eclipse today, they moved this game back to 5:10 p.m. So everybody will be in the ballpark enjoying the sights, but we'll see how many of them actually use the eclipse glasses and don't actually stare directly into the sun. So may get some blind umpires, may get some blind pitchers, but we'll see how White Sox and Guardians goes. I lean over. We'll see if I actually bet it once the starting pitcher gets confirmed.
And if you're looking to jump on that game early, intelligence says it's probably going to be either Jared Schuster, former Brave Jared Schuster, or Nick Nastrini taking the mound for the White Sox. We could see them bullpen it. They're probably going to call up someone from Charlotte before this game starts. Nastrini and Schuster would both be on schedule, or they go with some random, less intriguing arm and just try to eat innings. We might see a heavy dose of Tanner Banks today. Not good.
The Guardians also lifting the ball more this year. That's flown a little bit under the radar, but the Guardians are 4th in fly ball rate. This is a team who's consistently pounding the ball into the ground or looking to hit line drives. Under Stephen Vogt, they're finally trying to lift the ball. So maybe we get a little bit more offensive output from Cleveland this season. It's interesting.
It makes sense too, noted home run hitter Stephen Vogt. So, he comes in as manager and has them hitting the ball in the air.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a few more guys. Like now that Naylor's playing full time, obviously Jose Ramirez is the one guy you rely on consistently for power. There's just Bo Naylor, I guess, is the only other guy who like has power potential. Other than that, it's still the same kind of collection of styles of player. It seems like Tyler Freeman is probably their center fielder now. He looks really good out there, but he's another contact guy. So curious to see like how this works considering the profiles of these players, but at least they're trying to do it. And I give them credit for changing it up.
Kyle Manzardo's off to, well, he didn't make the team out of camp, but I'm waiting to see him in Cleveland as well. I think
He's
that's
another like line drive, like 20 home run kind of hitter though, right? Like higher average floor, like 20 home runs.
Yeah. Gap to gap guy.
Yeah.
Teams hosting games where the eclipse will be visible, 90% visible. Yankees, Cardinals, Pirates, Reds, and Blue Jays. And as Zerillo noted, the field, a progressive field, will be open for the Guardians game prior to the 5:10 start. Nearly 4 minutes of moon-induced blackout at the ballpark today.
Hopefully they're giving out classes.
Yeah, I hope so, if they really want to do it upright. But, you know, we just start at the top of the show with baseball's incompetence sometimes, so maybe they might not. Another note, Blake Snell. The Padres lost his first 5 starts last year, and in April, the walks were a concern. So keep an eye on the walks, too. Let me see, doing the quick math here, he had 17 walks in 4 starts in April.
Yeah, I actually was when I was looking at props last night and this morning, I was considering betting the over on his walks prop, but it was not. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was not where I wanted it to be. But I was looking to potentially bet the over on his walks, but the strikeout number is probably the better path there.
And if he goes over on whatever the walks would be, the strikeout's going to stay under, just because they'll rack up enough pitches with the walks that it'll keep everything down. So it's there's so much correlation there.
You're just essentially doubling down if you're doing both.
Blake Snell, BetMGM has Blake Snell over/under for walks at 1.5, the over at -175.
Yeah, too much juice.
Right, but that speaks to your point that if you get closer to a even money on a K prop under,
oh yeah, absolutely.
It correlates, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. I think unless you guys have more eclipse thoughts, I love the article at MajorLeagueBaseball.com. Stars align for baseball with rare solar eclipse.
Generative AI.
All right, very good. Collin Whitchurch, thanks for stopping by. Good to have you back on the podcast. He was in for BJ today. Find Collin over on the Action app for the Underdogs that he's into today. And his other pick, Sean Zerillo's got opening pitch, his not daily column anymore, but daily Monday through Thursday. Monday through Thursday, Zerillo will have opening pitch breaking down the entire slate. He'll also mix in his picks there as well. Follow these guys in the Action Network app. And again, if you don't mind, please leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to Payoff Pitch. For Sean Zerillo and Collin Whitchurch, Brendan Glasheen, we're back tomorrow morning for more best bets in Major League Baseball. Thanks for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast presented by BetMGM. Good luck and enjoy the eclipse wherever you are, and we'll see you next time.